All right, on this episode of Bare Knuckle Bowker, very excited to be chatting with an individual set to compete at BYB 33 Wolverhampton Brawl, which goes down on November the 9th. And we're taking in quite the intriguing rematch as well as Ryan Barrett and Daniel Podmore step into a bit of a different combative space here with the Mighty Trigon for the sequel fight. And great getting to have Daniel Podmore on Bare Knuckle Bowker to talk a bit about all of that today. How are you doing, man?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, doing good, man. Can't complain by any means. But like I kind of said in the intro, running it back here for the rematch, I'm curious like what changes you've seen in not just yourself, but also in your opponent, Ryan Barrett, since that instance whereby you got that second round retirement victory over him at BKB 28 in September of 2022.
Well, the changes I've had, I've had a complete switch up. I've changed gym, changed trainer. Um, at the last gym, I felt that uh, Simon, who was a fitness factory, got me to where I needed to be to win the title. Um, and from them sort of like fights onwards, I've become a bit stagnant, and I thought that was the furthest he was to be able to take me. I needed more technical advice and more technical knowledge. So I had to switch gym, and I've found Mike Kennelly down at Kennelly's gym. Um, he's boxed in the army himself. He's very very knowledgeable. He's got a high knowledge of the sport of boxing. So that's where I felt that I had to move to progress even further, to learn even more. And then from then onwards, from the last fight with Ryan, I've just concentrated on uh, more technical skills. When I fought Ryan last, it was I was fit, I was strong, I was good. But all game plans went out the window, and then we just basically had a tear up, we had a scrap, and there was no skill involved. This time, there's going to be a lot of skill involved. And I know that I've put a lot of time and effort into trying to improve. Um, and from the things that I see in Ryan, he hasn't improved. He's not. So there's going to be, yeah. I say that this fight's going to be totally different to the first one.
I guess in kind of saying that though, like did that represent a big moment for you, that fight, just in the sense of it cemented you as a two division world champion?
Yeah, it was. That fight was always a big fight for me. Obviously, for being, you know, another a title fight. But there was a lot of things leading up to that fight for me, which wasn't right. The training really wasn't right. Personal stuff wasn't. It was all loads of personal stuff going on. I wasn't there probably mentally than what I should have been. So I think I manifested like a dogfight. I was thinking, no, I think I need to go into the trenches, and I need to prove that I'm tough. I need to prove that I'm a fighter, and I can go into the trenches and pull myself back out, like walk into the fire and, so to speak, and come out on the other end. But yeah, that was totally wrong of me thinking that, because I am battle tested. I am tough. You know what I mean? I'm a world champion, for Christ's sake. You know what I mean? So I didn't need to go in there and prove that, but that's what I manifested for myself. I went in there and had a dogfight when that fight could have been so easy for me. Um, and I made it as hard as what it was. I made it that hard. You know what I mean? Because it was quite a difficult fight. Being able to withstand that first round sort of thing. So, but I've got a big heart, and there's a there's it's going to take more than that to get me out of there. So as soon as I started to switch on into the second round, that's where the fight started to turn around. Ryan knows that he can't match me on engine, he can't match me on skill, he can't match me on power, and he can't match me on speed. So he was losing a fight. He was fighting a losing battle. And this is why he retired. He said he had two broken hands after the fight, but there was no proof of that. There was no hospital job. There was no casts. There was nothing like that was ever proven. So for me, he retired just because he didn't want to be in there. No, and that was as simple as that.
I guess does that give you a certain mental edge heading into this fight if your interpretation is he had no, I guess, tangible proof of those injuries, but more so just wanted out of the fight? And I guess you were talking before, perhaps more on a technique level, though, like you haven't seen much change from him in the intervening years. Like, does that also apply to the mental game? Like, do you see like a similar moment in this fight? Like, maybe not through the specific lens of, him saying both of his hands are broken, etc., but just in terms of like, do you see some form of, I don't know, I guess mental break happening in this fight just based on the prior
Absolutely,
experience you touched on there?
absolutely, absolutely. There's, there's one thing that you can't train, and that's heart. Okay, um, and it's been proven before. When the going gets tough, the tough get going. Okay, and Ryan's just is I do like I do like the kid, but he's proven to give up. So, and that's just not something in my vocabulary. So I will never give up. You know, if I'm in a fight and I'm losing, you have to put me to sleep for me to stop the fight. You know what I mean? So, and that's a job in itself to put me to sleep. That's a lot. That's a task at hand. That's a hard task.
Yeah, and I know there's like the switching in weight divisions and stuff like that for sure, but I mean, just kind of an interesting situation with his last fight being for that British super middleweight title in June. Like, so there was nothing you saw in that Richie Samuels performance that I guess particularly impressed you, I suppose.
So Richie Samuels was it was okay white collar fighter. But that's basically it. He was a white collar fighter. I fought Richie Samuels when I was doing white collar. This was years and years ago. You know what I mean? So and he hadn't changed. But I think switching over to the bare knuckle, I think he was caught. It was like a deer caught in the headlights. You know what I mean? Ryan's like a seasoned fighter, so to speak, and Richie's had a couple. You know what I mean? So I think it was his might have been his first show on the big stage, and or might have been his second. I don't know. But yeah, putting in someone with like the caliber of Ryan, I think he was a bit out of his depth, and got caught cold. So I think the fight didn't really get the chance to get going because I know that Richard Samuels is quite a tidy boxer, but like I said, didn't have a chance to showcase that.
And I partly mentioned that June show because you were also on that same card and it marked the final
Yeah,
BKB show. And I'm sure I'll ask you some specifics to the fight you had on that card more so, but I guess I'm looking for more of, I guess, an overarching kind of answer. Like just as far as like how did it feel being part of something like that? Like I kind of got the sense from some other fighters I've talked to that have been on that card, like there's a certain touch of it being almost kind of bittersweet, like end of an era, but like leveling up to
yeah, of course.
something greater.
Yeah, of course. It's that's basically what it was. It was the end of an era, and I was happy to be a part of the show. Um, there's that will forever be set in stone now that I will still be the cruiserweight champion of the world for the BKB. But like I said, now they've had the merge, and now the BYB have taken over. It's just a new James, can I let venture to embark on. You know what I mean? So I'm just excited now to put my stamp on the BYB like I did on the BKB. So.
And what were your thoughts on that performance against Carl Hobley? Because another instance of securing a retirement and, leaving with that cruiserweight world title. So I imagine it was a good night for you in that sense.
Yeah, the thing is with Cole Hobley is, he's fought everybody that I've fought, and he's knocked everybody out. To be fair, so he was 5-1 or 6-1, and everybody that he's fought, other than Mickey Parker, he's knocked out. So they was calling him the Giant Killer, and I said, well, that's not going to happen for me. He's not going to beat me. And then is I had to nullify all his skills, So for me, I felt like I could have got him out of there anytime I wanted. But it was just for me, it was a chance for me to take the advice of my new coach, stay composed, stay cool, and box to orders. You know what I mean? So other than rather just get into a scrap and take him out. So I did what I needed to do, and I shut him down. He couldn't get his shots off on me. I shut him down, and he couldn't get no work done on me. So, and then when he realised that he was gassing out and I wasn't, he thought he'd give up as well. He retired on the stall as well. So
Yeah, and I mean, just talking about some of your different accolades, like I mentioned on that card, you leaving as the cruiserweight champion, and you'll always have that distinction with BKB, but
absolutely,
also previously
yeah,
having been there, world heavyweight champion and everything. I think this fight presents a very interesting situation for yourself as well, just because you were that first fighter to hold Police Gazette World Diamond belts at
absolutely,
heavyweight and cruiserweight, and now you're getting to fight for a Bridgerweight Police Gazette
yeah,
Diamond belt. So that must be tremendously exciting for you.
yeah. It's going to be another belt that's going to look absolutely perfect next to the ones I've already got. I'll say it's a new weight division to conquer as well. So I'm sure I just want to get this fight out of the way because I know that there's bigger things coming. Like I said, I'm not really looking past Ryan, but I know myself what I can do. I know that what Ryan can't do, and we're gonna exploit that. And this fight will be as hard as I wanted to make it, or as easy as I would like to make it. You know what I mean? So, um, like I said, Ryan comes to our gym. Before I started coming to this gym, Ryan used to come to my gym now for technicals with my coach. So he knows exactly what we do here. And he knows that we're going to devise a plan that he's not going to be able to contend with. You know what I mean? So, and if anything, he's taken backward steps in his approach to this fight, sort of thing. So his skill wise, you think he would have been improved, but I don't think he has.
Yeah, and it seems like this was a thing that was on your radar for a bit. Like, I mean, even in your, post-fight chat at BKB 39 and just even around that time, like the whole acquisition was on people's radars. Like people knew about it for sure. And even then you were talking about making that jump to BYB and the title aspirations in this new promotion. I guess I'm wondering how much your, I guess, training preparations may have changed because as much as both BKB and BYB are bare knuckle leagues, like some pretty fundamental differences just with BYB's active clinch and then the Mighty Trigon being a bit of a tighter competitive space. And maybe this isn't as much of a thing because you're in one of the higher divisions, I guess, but like day before versus day of weigh-ins, like how much have you, I guess, like changed in your preparation to adapt to this newer kind of framework with BYB?
Well, the fact of the matter is, it's in a trigon. It's a triangle. Okay. Now boxers look for angles. So the trigon for me is giving me the angles that I'm gonna need. You know what I mean? All I need to keep is my ring generalship, and then he's gonna give me the angles. You know what I mean? So I think it's all gonna go smoothly. It's gonna go swimmingly. The 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 fighting next week. I think it's gonna be quite easy to change the styles. As far as the minutes of the rounds, I think we train threes anyway, so we're already on that level sort of thing. So, and now we're fighting threes. We train fives. So it's my engine's through the roof at the minute. So it's for me. I've always I used to do MMA when I was a young kid, so I'm good. And I used to do Muay Thai and kickboxing and stuff like that. So I'm used to clinching and stuff like that as well. So it's going to be interesting to find out, um, what it's going to be like to use that again. You know what I mean? So I'm gonna I'm gonna utilize skills that I've already had that I've not been able to doing the BKB. So
Yeah, and I know you phrased it in a way where you were talking about not wanting to overlook your opponent, and I'm not posing this question to overlook Ryan Barrett as well, but just you were talking about like different things that you were kind of eyeballing, like in terms of like future goals or things you would like to achieve. I guess like in the context of if you get your ideal outcome here in this upcoming fight, like what would those bigger opportunities represent to you? Like what do you kind of have in your mind in that regard?
Well, I've always thought because when I lost the heavyweight title, I was originally supposed to be fighting at cruiserweight, which is 101 kilos. But then Carl Hobley pulled out, so I had to defend my heavyweight title instead. And I never should have took that fight against Richie Leake. So I've always wanted to get that fight back. Guy was just way too big for me at the time. Now, if I would have had a bit more weight on me, that fight would have been totally different. So depending on what happens between Trujillo and Richie Leake when they fight, you could see me back at heavyweight, or you could see me possibly go down even more, go down to cruiserweight again. So I want to dominate. I want to dominate everybody. That's what it is. So I've come to a new gym. I've got a new trainer. I've got a new lease of life. When I was at my other gym, I felt like my career was coming to an end. It isn't. It's just starting all over again, and I'm coming to dominate everybody.
That must be tremendously exciting for you because, like I was saying before, like you already have such an established resume with like the Police Gazette title history and the BKB title history. Like you could easily, theoretically, stop fighting and your legacy would have been rock solid there. It must be
Yeah.
exhilarating to have all of this additional, I guess, motivation and that fire sort of resparked there.
Yeah, I'm gonna fight for as long as I possibly can until my arms possibly, allow me to. Yeah, so I've got a competitive streak that needs to be tested. You know what I mean? So I'm not ready to retire. I'm not. That's not even in the pipeline right now. I don't get that. Why would you let that even? I've still got a life. I've still got life left in me. You know what I mean? I'm 36, but I'm still ready for it. I'm still ready for everyone. You know what I mean? I'm training in such a way now, which is it's efficient instead of just going 100% all the time. You know what I mean? I'm efficiently training, so it's going to prolong my career. And I think, yeah, I've still got loads left to give. So you'll all see that on the 9th of November.
And it's interesting you also mentioning cruiserweight because I was going to get your thoughts on the Gustavo Trujillo Richie Leake fight, just because, as you
Yeah,
outlined, you have that competitive history with Richie Leake. But it would
yeah.
also seem like that Cub Hawkins against Zion Tomlinson fight for the BYB Cruiserweight Police Gazette belt would also be of some interest to you, or at least like a thing you're peripherally aware of, I suppose. I guess like what are your thoughts on both of those fights there at BYB 34? It would seem like you would have some level of focus on that.
Yeah, we're always watching. Me and my coach, we're always watching. We've got eyes on everybody. You know what I mean? So any way that my career could go, that's we're already looking at. You know what I mean? So we could go down to cruiserweight. Is it 91 kilo? You know what I mean? Or we could go back up to heavyweight. So it's it's like I said, we ain't gonna know until I decide. You know what I mean? Until I see some of them fights, we'll decide on what we want to do. But like I said, I definitely want to get the fight with Richard League back. Like depending on who wins that fight, to be fair, I don't see Richard League winning. But like I said, who doesn't want to be heavyweight champion of the world? So it'd be nice to grab that title as well. I know that Trujillo's a very, very good boxer, but that's another person that I feel that I could beat. So sometimes I see videos and stuff. Is that really make?
Yeah, I
We're
mean,
willing to
it's
test it. Yeah.
Oh yeah, no, sorry, there was just a bit of a delay on my end. I was just gonna say it seems like you have so many options. Like it seems like, obviously this Bridgerweight fight, I mean, you could go to cruiserweight, heavyweight. It seems like you have so many options. And even with like establishing that like Bridgerweight kind of category, it already seems like even in anecdotally some of the interviews I've done, there's guys that seem like they're very focused on that title or would be keen to get it at some point. Like I've spoken recently to like Marco Martignac and Ike
Yeah,
Villanueva, who also seem kind of keen on a Bridgerweight move at some point.
yeah, yeah. Bring them on. Like I said, If I win that title, then I'm here to stay, and then people are gonna know that. I know, yeah, I know that Villanova, he's set his sights on that as well. There's probably possibly a couple more heavyweights that want to actually drop down and have a pop as well. But like I say, they've got to get through me first, or possibly Ryan. But like I said, I think the English bring the technical side of fighting to bare knuckle. You know what I mean? So I think the Americans, they are tough, they're durable, but they're scrappers. You know what I mean? They love dogfights. And the English, obviously, because we was the pioneers of the sport. We bring the technical side to the sport. So I think it's going to be very interesting. It's got exciting times ahead.
And I would think like even on your individual journey, that might even be that much more underscored. Just you talking earlier in the conversation about how you've like switched your gym and some of your training dynamics. And it would seem like based on what you've said, like the fight IQ and the technicality is even, more of a priority from what we've seen from you previously. So that sentiment could even, I guess, come across more from how we see you perform in this next one, it sounds like at least.
Absolutely, everybody knows I can scrap. Everyone knows that I'm durable. Everyone knows that I can go into the trenches and still pull it out the bag. But now it's time to go back to showing how to box, showing people how to box. The skills, the levels, the boxing levels that we're actually that we have here. So.
I messaged the geezer. Yeah, prep meals, mate.
Yeah, no, I hear you, man. It's been great getting to have you on the program and chat a little bit, though. I'm sure there's a ton of questions I can ask you, but it seems like you have a lot on the go. I mean, one does when they're leading into such a big championship fight, but super cool of you to come on Bare Knuckle Bowker and give great insights, man. But yeah, no, figured I'd give you the floor, though, in case there was any final thought you wanted to add as we're wrapping up here. I do appreciate your time and insights, man.
Yeah, thank you, mate. I just want to urge everybody to tune in on the 9th of November. There's I'm co-main event, which against Marco and his guy that he's fighting. But we could easily be a main event. Just want to urge to everybody to tune in and see how and watch the fight unfold, how the last one left off. So it's going to be a great fight, and I wish Ryan all the best. But coming to win, and that's what it's going to be, and that's what he's going to be, coming to win. So just want to thank you for having me on the show, and see you in November.
Yeah, no, great chat, man. Hopefully the first of many appearances on the show, and just super excited for this Ryan Barrett rematch and everything.
Yep.
Definitely one more intriguing fights at BYB 33. But again, thanks so much for coming on Bare Knuckle Bowker ahead of November 9th, and have a good rest of your day, Dan. Thank you.
Thank you for having me, and enjoy your day yourself, mate. Nice one. Thank you.
All right, on this episode of Bare Knuckle Bowker, very excited to be chatting with an individual who competes at BYB 33 Wolverhampton Brawl, which goes down on November 9th. And it is a co-main event bout and also a rematch, interestingly enough, as Ryan Barrett is set to step into the Mighty Trigon against Dan Podmore. And great having Ryan on Bare Knuckle Bowker today. How are you doing, man? You having a solid day?
I'm very well, thank you.
No, that's awesome.
Very well, thank you.
Yeah, I love that, man. I think one of the first things I wanted to touch on, because I spoke to your opponent, Dan Podmore, the other day, and I asked him as much about the same, because I referenced that you guys had a previous fight in BKB, fighting at BKB 28 circa September 2022. Like, what would you say the biggest differences are in, I guess, your game and also any differences you may have seen in Podmore since the first fight. Like, what's different from the first fight to now?
I would say Pod Dem was probably at his peak, at his very best, and I think he's got better over time, better technically, but I think physically time is against him, and I damaged him in that fight, and I think subsequently since then, I think he's not as resilient as he previously was. And he's had a lot of hard fights since. Like, so after my fight, I hurt him in my fight, and then he went down, I think, 3 times in his next fight in Thailand. He's been knocked out against Rishi Leak, and previously before then, he'd never been down before our fight. And obviously, I broke my hand in 8 places on his head. I caught him with a good overhand right in the first round, but he managed to weather the storm. And I just think that was me physically unwell, not prepared. And I think me now, if I land any kind of shot like I landed in the last fight, I don't think he'll be there. I think he'll be gone.
Oh, that's interesting. So you see this one ending inside the distance then?
I believe so, yeah.
And I would think being in the Mighty Trigon even informs the idea even more, just speaking to like how tight of a space it is and the overall finishing rate that BYB Extreme seems to have.
Yeah, well, that's it. All my wins have came by knockout anyway. So all my 5 wins are all by knockout. So I'm someone who I've had a 7-second knockout. I've had a 36-second. My last fight was 66 seconds, and I put someone down 3 times. I believe I'm one of the biggest punchers in BYB, and I ain't planning on being in there for overtime. I think in that Trigon, I got in it at Leeds and moved around. It just seems like you're going to be in mid-range all the time. So that's constantly in the firing line if you're in against me, and that's not good for anybody.
Yeah, and I guess speaking to like the range, because you talk about how much like it'll be within that middle range in a lot of portions of the fight. Like BYB also has that active clinch component to the game
It does,
that
yeah.
BKB didn't have. Like, have you, I guess, changed your preparations at all just leading into this BYB debut with that being part of the rule set this time out?
We have done, yeah, and I've been glad that we've had such a long period to adjust, really, because it's a totally different sport, it's a totally different game, and you've got to be fit for the 3 minutes, and you've got to be fit with somebody dragging you around and wrestling you and trying to punch you when you don't want to be punched. So yeah, that's something that we have been worked on, and just the extra minute. For me, I'm a very fast, high-paced fighter, so we've had to make sure I can still maintain that pace over the 3-minute rounds, over 7 minutes, which has been tough to say the least.
Yeah, I mean, I have so much respect for anyone that has gone over from BYB to BKB or the inverse previously. Like, obviously, with BYB acquiring BKB now, it's like the guys coming over to the Trigon. But I just have so much respect because as much as it is bare knuckle, so many different considerations to the game, like even beyond the active clinch I was talking about. I mean, maybe not so much for you guys because you're at a bit of a higher weight category, but like the day before weigh-ins versus like the day of weigh-ins and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's like there's a few fundamental differences.
Well, I think even for me and Dan, like at cruiserweight where we fought before, I think we both had to, both would have to maybe be mindful of what we're doing. But this Bridgerweight class, it's given us a bit of freedom to move and to really, really focus on being strong and fit. And that's why I just think you're going to see a very explosive fight with me and Dan, because I've got a lot of respect for Dan and his trainer, Mike Kennelly, and his gym. I've actually trained with under Mike for fights myself. So I know the work that he put in there, and it's serious work. So whoever wins this fight, let it be known it's going to be no excuses from me, no excuses from Dan. We're both going to be our best. And I think when we know we're fighting each other, you've got to be at your best because we're both killers.
Yeah, absolutely. Such an exciting fight, and I have so much I want to get into with that, but I also feel like I'd be remiss if I didn't touch on your last fight, like at least in the context of it being the final BKB show overall.
Yeah.
Like I've talked to a few fighters from that card, and it seemed like the sentiment was kind of like bittersweet in a sense, like, end of an era, but going into something that's ideally and from by all accounts going to level up the game of bare knuckle. Like, what were your thoughts on just being involved in BKB 39? Yeah.
For me, it wasn't so much it was the last show. It was my last chance to win a British title, another British title. So that's what it was about for me. It was about because I won a British title, then I had 3 losses on a row. So it was about getting back into winning ways, winning in dominant fashion, and becoming a British champion again, and then carrying on from there, which has put me in good stead for this fight. The way that I've won my last 2 fights has shown that I am in the top fight, one of the top fighters in the world in the 2 or 3 weight classes. I was meant to be fighting Trilio. He's a heavyweight. This is super Bridgerweight. Obviously, I fought Brad Scott, who's fighting super cruiserweight. So I could fit in 3 different weight classes, and I think I'm in the top 3 or 4 in the world in all of them.
And it seems like this Bridgerweight title fight is so interesting. Like the actual fight between yourself and Podmore is quite interesting, but it seems like there's such like an ample talent pool for it thereafter. Like even
so as well, I think it leaves room for unification fights, big fights at the higher weights, which you don't really normally see. So I don't think that's something that's really exciting because potentially we could all the top 3 weight classes could all fight each other. So I think it opens it up massively. It opens the talent pool up massively, and that's something that really excites me.
Yeah, like even anecdotally, I've been talking to guys like Marco Martignac and Ike Villanueva recently, and it seems like the Bridgerweight title might hold some interest for them. So just like a wealth of world-class talent. Yeah.
Of course, yeah. And it's like I was backstage with Big George's fight when obviously he couldn't fight due to illness. I was talking to his opponent, and I looked at him and I said to Jim, I wish I'd bought my boots because I think there's lots of us that are all around the right size, and that for a fighting man, that just excites me. And like you say, Marty, like everyone's looking at each other licking the lips, isn't they?
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Everyone wants to be the best, and everyone, if you're a real fighter, you believe you can be. There's not anyone I look at and don't believe I can win. And I think if you're not going to be a champion if you don't believe that in your own self.
Yeah, and as you've mentioned, I mean, definitely instances where you've held BKB titles before. It seems like when I talk to fighters when they're in these fights for Police Gazette championships, like obviously the BKB title has tremendous value, but I think some people really look at that deep lineage of the Police Gazette title, just dating back to the 1800s and stuff like that. Like, how important would it be for you to, I guess, be interwoven into that Police Gazette title history?
It'd be absolutely massive for me. And like I've actually got John O'Sullivan tattooed on my leg, on the back of my leg, and I had that done before I was in hospital. Like boxing's been a big thing in my family, my whole family. My dad was a boxer. I've grown up watching boxing. I've grown up watching bare knuckle boxing, and something I've always loved. And it'd be a dream come true for me to be a world champion, and not just that, to have another fight against Dan, like win, lose or draw. This fight will be a fight that's going to be remembered forever. And I want my name to be remembered in bare knuckle as someone who never avoided anybody, and someone if I land, you get knocked the fuck out.
Yeah, I mean, I think you've illustrated that quite well through your fights so far, man. But that's really cool because I'd seen you had an amateur boxing background from the Midlands and had collected some cruiserweight and heavyweight gold as well. I didn't know bare knuckle was on your radar so early though. Like you were peeping the fights when you were younger.
Well, that's the thing. I've always been a bit of a tearaway, and my dad used to actually work with somebody called Sean Burns in Northampton. He was European bare knuckle boxing champion, and I had all his posters all in my room, and we used to watch his videos and things. And he was quite a rogue character from Northampton, and one of the first bare knuckle boxers about. And so I've always grown up loving it, and loving anything to do with fighting. To be fair.
Yeah, no, it comes across, man, and just like you said, I mean, such an exciting fight. I mean, you can really tell that like the guys from BKB before are still heavily involved in BYB now, just in the matchmaking and just
exactly that for me. I'm somebody I'm interested in fights, not money. And if there was going to be a chance to get to fight Dan, I didn't want to rule myself out of it. Obviously, when he was champion, he can choose to fight whoever he wants. That's a champion's prerogative. And I'm kind of in the Who Needs Him club. You know, if you've got a win against me, cherish that forever. Because, I mean, I'm high risk, low reward, isn't I? And I think I pass, lucky for me, our paths have met and I get another chance. Because I don't think really I would have got one otherwise. So I'm really glad, really grateful. I'm really grateful to Dan and his team for taking the fight. Obviously, they're going to believe they're going to win. I believe I'm going to win. That's what's going to lead to a great fight. That's what fight's all about.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like I'd be remiss if I didn't touch on this because you'd kind of mentioned Gustavo Trujillo in a bit of a
Yeah.
cursory way, and you guys were, from what I could tell, supposed
Yeah.
to fight at BYB 25, but that had kind of
Yeah.
fallen out. And you also mentioned Richie Leak more so in the context of his prior
Yeah.
fight with Daniel Podmore. Like, how do you see that fight with Gustavo Trujillo and Richie Leak playing out at BYB 34 in December?
Richie Leak is a big, strong, formidable man, and if you, I just look at, we had a plan for Trio. Nobody's actually gone to him and tried to stick it on him, tried to push him back. And obviously he's a very slick boxer, but I think he'll get that from Richie Leak. He's a big, tough man, and I wish him all the best. He's a very nice bloke. I've got a lot of respect for Richie, and yeah, I hope he does the business. And I think it's shown. Podmore is one of the toughest men I've ever faced. And anyone who can keep him on the floor, which Richie managed to, and I couldn't. Richie Lee's obviously got something in their hands that most people ain't, because no one keeps Podmore down, to be fair. He's got an head like a caravan, he just keeps getting up.
Yeah, just such a good fight. I feel like that's one of those matchups that I, even as someone who I guess avidly follows Bare Knuckle, was kind of thinking of as a possibility for when BYB acquired BKB. So yeah, I'd love to see it.
I've been a fan of Richie Leak since he fought Eric Coulson. Eric Coulson's one of my previous sparring partners, and I personally know how good and how tough and how awkward Eric is. And Richie obviously didn't have the best night there. I think he wasn't well or whatever, but take nothing away from Eric. Eric bashed him up horrible, and Rich stayed in the fight and stayed there till the end when a lot of people would look for a way out. And I've just got to take my hat off to Richie Leak for his character there and his perseverance. So you can't write anybody like that off.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess that's a dimension that we haven't really, I guess, seen from Gustavo as much. Like, he's just been so dominant. We haven't really seen those moments of, I guess, how he responds to that certain resistance. And from what you're saying, it seems like Leak can really put that certain pressure on him.
I hope so, yeah. As a fan, I hope so, because like I say, I wanted to fight. It was like a dream fight for me. But with my, obviously, colostomy bag, the Florida Athletic State Commission wouldn't allow me to fight. That's a shame, because we would have gone over there and rolled the dice. I roll the dice every single time I get in the ring, win, lose or draw. So we would have gone for it, and I believe Richie Leak will as well. So we'll get to see.
Yeah, well, when I talked to Dan Podmore the other day, he was almost even looking at that fight as something that could even represent a potential matchup in the future. Like, is that a sentiment you share?
The winner of that could be the winner of ours could fight in the winner of that, and likewise the fight below. So that's what everyone's looking at. Everyone's looking at a chance to fight the big fight, isn't they? And these fights can all lead on to that. But don't look past me. I ain't a stepping stone. I've said this before in the fight before. I'm more like a landmine rather than stepping stone. Try and step on me, and to step past you might get your legs blown off.
Yeah, well, it seems like you really learned from that sort of like setback you'd had, I guess, a few years back, or I guess that was like 2023, like late 2022 more so. Like, you really snapped back from that skid and just like back-to-back first-round knockouts. Now, like, it seems like you like took the lessons from those moments and are really putting it all together. And it seems like you have some momentum heading into this for sure.
I think exactly that. If you looked at the way I started out the sport, I beat Matthew Hodgson in like 7 seconds. That was, and he was European champion at the time. That's the way I started out. And when I won the British title, I lost my way personally, and everything went down the pan with it. And now, obviously, I've got myself back together. I found out what matters to me, and it's this. And I can honestly say I've never worked and dedicated myself for anything other than getting in the Royal Marines as hard as I've done for this fight. So, like I say, win, lose or draw, you're going to see the very best from me, and I'm going to give it everything I've got.
Yeah, and who would you say that core team is that's really prepared you for this one?
I'd have to say, so my coach, Dave Mack, he's been with me for the last 2 years, and we didn't even know if I was going to fight again. He prepared me for when I fought Brad Scott. So not many people knew this, but I had a broken right hand still from fighting Podmore. I only trained 3 times, and he came and stood with me. Dave's had to pull me out of 2 fights when I shouldn't have fought. And he came and cornered me, and he got a lot of stick from it. And a lot of people were saying I was a waste of time. And he stood by me, and we've had 2 massive knockouts. I'm improving all the time as a person, inside and outside of the ring. And Dave, none of it would be about Dave. So this fight, really, I could dedicate this fight to Dave, because without him, this won't be happening. And I've got other people like sponsors like Jim Bell. Jim Bell's sponsored me when I was at a really low time, and he's someone who stood by me through the rough times. And that's what I mean. We've got a very small circle now. When I fought Dan, I had so many people around me, so many women and this and that. And when you lose, it becomes very sad and very lonely. There's no one there patting you on the back. And we've got a very small team. That's all I want and all I need. And we gratify ourselves through the hard work that we put in.
Yeah, and that's even like a deeper part of the journey that you touched on, because you have like the early enough successes, like you're capturing a BKB belt within your first 4 fights, and then all of a sudden, like I guess like hangers on, or like the people that are there in a conditional sense, they start leaving when there's like a setback or two. So yeah,
exactly that. So we went from having sponsors throwing themselves at us all over to when I fought Tony Barrett, we got £150 in sponsors, which basically only just paid for my shorts. So and we've just kept it in that vein. We've just kept people who sponsored me when I'd lost. They're on the kit now, and they're the people who are going to be like now where I am now. I'm at sponsors a barbershop now, who they look after me, and I've been the whole time I've been boxing. I've had to come down here to nick the Wi-Fi, so I've not got Wi-Fi in my flat.
Yeah, no, that's awesome, man. And yeah, just such a great time in the career. I mean, you were one of those guys, along with Podmore, also, just in terms of like guys I'd be curious to see in the Trigon. So glad that we're seeing this rematch in this kind of framework, man. And you've given such great insights throughout our chat today. It's been great having you on Bare Knuckle Bowker to chat a bit. But I do want to be mindful of what you're getting up to, man, and figured I guess, give you the floor and see if you had a final thought you wanted to add as we're wrapping up here, Ryan.
I just want to say thank you so much to Jim, Joe, and everyone with BYB, Dan Podmore, for taking the fight, because as a fan, I would like to see Dan fight in the Trigon myself, and I'm pretty sure people would like to see me in there. And it just so happens they're going to get to see 2 of the horriblest, most violent people in the sport fight each other. And I think everyone's a winner.
Yeah, well said, man. I'm really stoked for BYB 33 Wolverhampton Brawl. This is certainly one of the more intriguing fights on this card. And yeah, I'll be checking it out on November 9th, man. Again, thanks for coming on Bare Knuckle Bowker ahead of this Dan Podmore rematch. And you have a good rest of your day, man. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Cheers.